But as long as my phone calling to order the Monday, March 15th, 2021 regular meeting of the 38th Council of the City of Berkeley. Ms. Mitchell, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Baker,
Here in Berkeley.
Councilmember Blanchard,
Here in Berkeley.
Mayor Pro Tem Dean,
Here in Berkeley.
Councilmember Gavin,
Here, Berkeley.
Councilmember Hennon,
Here, Berkeley.
Councilmember Price,
Here in Berkeley.
Mayor Turbrack.
Here and also in Berkeley. Our first order of business this evening is the approval of tonight's agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Support.
Motion to approve by Councilmember Blanchard with support from Councilmember Gavin. Are there any changes or corrections? Seeing none, unless everybody's frozen. Ms. Mitchell, would you please call the roll on tonight's agenda?
Blanchard,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Gavin,
Yes.
Hennon,
Yes.
Price,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Turbrack.
Yes. At this time, please stand for the invocation and remain standing for the pledge. With us this evening is Pastor Josh Ray.
Well, hey everyone, it was a pleasure to be here with you all. I just moved to Berkeley just 4 months ago, so you're all new to me, and happy to pray for the city of Berkeley. Dear God, we just pray for the city of Berkeley and this council, God, that you guide their words, guide this conversation, just for the good of the people of this city. God, there's so much going on, and there's a lot of stress. God, help us to put that aside, have fruitful conversation, and move the city of Berkeley forward. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Mhm. Please turn to the flag or look at the flag. I pledge allegiance
to
to the flag
of the
of the
United
United
States
States of America
of America,
and to the republic
for which
for
it
which it
stands,
stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
Under
under God, indivisible,
indivisible, with
liberty
liberty
and justice for all.
justice for all.
Okay, we have reached the first public comments section of tonight's agenda. Again, this is for items that are included on tonight's agenda. A reminder, there will be another public comment section towards the end of the meeting for items that were not covered on tonight's agenda. As a reminder, council members will not engage you in discussion, but if your concern needs to be addressed by a member of city staff or department of the city, please email the clerk's office at clerk@berkeleymish.net or call the clerk's office at 248-658-3310. If you'd like to comment, please raise your hand, either your real hand or your virtual hand, and you'll be recognized by either name or number. When you speak, please state your name and city of residence, and as a reminder, you will be limited to 3 minutes.
Mr. Mayor, I'm not seeing anyone at this time.
All right, we'll give everybody a couple more minutes or another minute or so, but Ms. Mitchell, have you received anything to be read into the public record?
Yes, Your Honor. I received one email from Elizabeth Petrie, Petry, Berkeley resident, stating her concerns with the Berkeley Days application. She urges council to deny the application.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else, Ms. Mathis, that we see?
No, sir.
Okay. We will close the first public comment section and we will move on to tonight's order of business. First up is our consent agenda. Ms. Mitchell, would you please read the items on tonight's consent agenda?
1, approval of the minutes, matter of approving the minutes of the 38th regular city council meeting on Monday, March 1st, 2021. 2, warrant, matter of approving warrant number 1360. 3, proclamation P421, matter of proclaiming April 2021 as Child Abuse Prevention and Awareness Month. 4, proclamation P521, matter of proclaiming April 2021 as Sexual Assault Awareness Month. 5, proclamation P621, matter of proclaiming April 2021 as Autism Awareness Month. 6, proclamation P721, matter of proclaiming April 2021 as Fair Housing Month.
Is there a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda?
So moved.
Support.
Motion made by Mayor Pro Tem Dean with support from Councilmember Hennan. Are there any changes, deletions, corrections? All right. Seeing none, Ms. Mitchell, would you please call the roll on tonight's consent agenda?
Dean,
Yes.
Gavin,
Yes.
Hennan,
Yes.
Price,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Blanchard,
Yes.
Turbeck.
Yes. Tonight's consent agenda has passed. We now move on to tonight's regular agenda. Ms. Mitchell, would you please read item number 1?
Presentation, matter of receiving a presentation from Senator Mallory McMorrow's office.
And I see that we have Liz Trombley with us this evening. So Liz, welcome, and I will turn it over to you.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for letting me join. I'm obviously filling in for Senator McMorrow as she's just about a month ago now, maybe a month and 10 days, forget. Just her and her husband welcomed little baby Noah. So while she's taking her time, I'm trying to do my best to give updates. So this one specifically, a lot has happened in the last week or two. So I will try my best to cover everything. But I know we have great news that there is, in Michigan specifically, April 5th, vaccinations will be open to those 16 and above. With March 22nd will be all Michiganders 50 and above, and then Michiganders 16 and up with pre-existing conditions. And then on the 5th in April, it'll be opened up to everybody. This was also included with an announcement of Ford Field being a mass vaccination site. Registration is actually opened up today through the Meyer Clinic. So that's pretty exciting news. It'll be open for 8 weeks, 8:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. For 7 days a week, doing 6,000 shots in arms a day. So we're working towards whatever a normal world will be after this. So that's the update on, I guess, COVID vaccination. Additionally, there was a COVID stimulus relief package passed through the state, which distributed funding from when Congress sent it back to us in December. I do know, as probably you guys all know, that the governor vetoed 2 of those bills that were tie-barred to that funding that would have restricted her and a lot of local health offices from making their own choices with, schools and all that stuff. So there's a lot of money still up to be negotiated. The House, I think on Wednesday or Thursday, sent that money back to the Senate. So we'll see what happens this week with it. But a lot of moving parts in that. So I'm trying my best to break it down, but there are so many different things. But within the money that did get released was $283 million in federal rent assistance, a $2.25 per hour wage increase for direct care workers, $110 million for vaccine distribution, and $555 million for testing and contact tracing. And then I know Molly sent an email, Molly in our office sent an email to local electeds about the Open Meetings Act allowing for virtual meetings. A week or two ago, it got extended to March 31st, the allowance for virtual meetings. And since then, we've been asked if it will be past that. And from what we're hearing, the governor really wants it to be done legislatively as it's supposed to be. And Senate, mostly the House is not wanting to do that. The Republicans in the House are not wanting to extend anything. We've heard a little bit of budging on the Senate Republican side, but not the House Republican side. So as of right now, it doesn't look like it will be extended from what we're seeing. And yeah, that's a bit of my update from the many things that are moving right now in state government.
Thank you for the update, Liz, and especially as it relates to that last item. That is something that we have obviously been concerned about and looking at, and we'll be taking our own steps to remedy that this evening, hopefully, and to allow ourselves to continue to meet safely and keep everybody safe in the interim. Are there any other questions or anything else from council members or something for Liz to take back to Senator McMorrow? Councilmember Hennon?
Yeah, on the OMA issue, do you know what the hesitancy is? And is there anything we as a body or as individual council members can do?
Yeah, I know that from our office, at least, this is something, especially because we've introduced allowance for remote voting, a resolution. We think it should be something that is in place forever. You know, someone gets sick, someone can't come or something, you know, I don't know exactly what the hesitancy is. We haven't been included in those conversations, unfortunately. So I will try and do a little bit more prying and see if Molly has any information, but as of right now, I don't really have a why answer, unfortunately.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any additional comments? Councilmember Blanchard?
That was basically my question also. I was following Senate Bill 207 today, and I see that that's still bottled up in committee. It hasn't moved since they dropped it in. And do you know why that?
Yeah, I don't. And it's a little bit surprising to me as well, because that bill itself, 207, is introduced by a Republican member of the Senate. So I don't know what the holdup is.
It seems pretty simple. It's just a straight extension of what we have now. There's like 4 words changed in their dates. And so it should be pretty simple, but for some reason it's hung up. So, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any additional questions or comments? Councilmember Baker?
Thank you, Your Honor, and thank you for the update, and thanks to the senator for all her great work for Berkeley and for the region. What else can you share, or what else are you aware of in terms of how the state will be leveraging the relief funds that have come through from the federal level? Certainly, you know, as you mentioned in your update, it's being dispersed, and we in Berkeley are having similar conversations about how and in what ways to best apply that to move the city forward. Are there any additional programs or initiatives that you could see that we could do to help fortify our society or take a positive step forward to leverage some of this funding?
Are you asking about the first package or the most recently released
The
federal
most recently released one, yeah, the new one, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know on that one yet, just because it's so fresh and new that we're still talking to our congressional partners. We have Congressman Levin, Stevens, and Slotkin, so we're talking to them, and tomorrow we have a meeting to just learn more about where those funds are going to go. So I can probably circle back with you after that conversation, but no, we're kind of in the mess of the first federal funding, so learning more second as we go.
Nice, thank you. Yeah, I know things take time, and it's just you know, and maybe if there's ways that the communities can be involved in communication. Certainly, your office has done a great job keeping us posted on what things are going on and where things are at. That we'd love to work through you guys if that's the best avenue, or if there's another forum to provide additional input as to what we could benefit from here as a city if the state did this other thing over there. You know what I mean? So yeah, let us know how
Yeah,
we can
and
help.
when we've had those conversations with other, you know, local electeds about how the money has helped and where it's gone. So yeah, that would be great.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Liz, for being with us this evening. And please not only express our congratulations to Senator McMorrow and her family, but also our gratitude and thanks for the work that she is doing in trying to keep everybody moving as safely as possible, but also with the eye on getting back to some sort of normalcy as soon as possible. And also want to thank you for the very open lines of communication. We've had great contact with her office, with the senator's office. Whenever we've had questions, we've gotten responses. So very appreciative of that.
Of course. And Noah did receive a Berkeley Public Schools onesie. So looking forward to seeing her in that. So but thank you for letting me come tonight.
Well, thank you, Liz. We appreciate it. All right. We will now move on to item number 2. Ms. Mitchell, would you please read that item?
Presentation, matter of receiving a presentation from Haven.
All right, well, we'll keep this presentation going. With us this evening, we have Melissa Sinclair. She is the Director of Social Action at Haven. Melissa, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. Good evening. My name is Melissa Sinclair. I'm the Social Action Program Director at Haven. So I supervise all of our court first response and personal protection order advocates, of which I have 10. Advocates are assigned to one specific city. And so in your city, we have Lindsay Garasha. She unfortunately couldn't be with us this evening, but she is ever present in your community and does chair your high-risk response team. It's my understanding that we'll come back. We'll talk about high-risk response teams another time. That's a big conversation. But for today, a little bit about myself. I've been in the victim advocacy field for just about 10 years. I've been with Haven for 5.5 now. And in addition to supervising the advocates, I also oversee all of the high-risk response teams in Oakland County. I'm also the co-chair for the Coordinating Council Against Domestic Violence. And then I do co-chair the Southfield High-Risk Response Team. So I am an expert in the field as it pertains to intimate partner violence, sexual assaults, and then building relationships with communities like Berkeley. So I'm really excited to be here today. Just with a show of hands, who's heard of Haven before? I'm in good company. Great. Friends of Haven. Tori, if you wouldn't mind pulling up the presentation for me here.
Sure thing.
Thank you. Who's ever been to Haven? Have you seen our facility in Pontiac? Seen our facility. So that looks familiar to you. This is Haven's new state-of-the-art building. We did move in there December of 2015. We had a gigantic campaign. You may remember it. We raised a few $1 million to be able to create the state-of-the-art facility that you're seeing on your screen today. Haven is 37,000 square feet. And inside Haven, we have every single one of our programs that I'm going to talk to you about today in this presentation. We'll dive into each individual program and how they assist survivors, as well as how you can connect survivors or victims in your community to Haven. Next slide, please. Thank you. So, as you may be aware, Haven is Oakland County's only center that is comprehensive and serves all survivors of sexual assault and domestic violence. Our mission is to eradicate sexual assault and intimate partner violence and heal those affected by its injustice. Haven's mission is to empower survivors through advocacy and social change. Next slide, please. Thank you. So the gateway to Haven is our 24-hour crisis and support line. Fun fact, that's actually where I started my career. I started on Haven's crisis and support line as their first full-time advocate that assisted them. So on the crisis line, those advocates are receiving calls from survivors themselves. Now I'm going to use the word survivor and victim interchangeably. That all means somebody that has survived an experience of abuse in their relationship. So on our crisis line, as I was saying, survivors can call themselves, Community partners such as yourself, if you're concerned about somebody in your community and want to process with that crisis and support line specialist, perhaps resources, how to support them, the crisis line stands ready for that. We also, if you wouldn't mind going back just briefly, thank you. We also have police officers that will call in to maybe schedule an exam. We'll get into what that looks like. So this is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it is free and confidential. All of Haven services are covered by federal confidentiality, meaning that we cannot disclose without the explicit written permission of the survivor what has happened to them, to anybody in the criminal justice system, anybody in the community, unless we are required to do so by law. We are all mandated reporters, so if we're hearing about child abuse or the intent to harm self or someone else, that is where we have to report. Otherwise, survivors and community members have a safe space to process their situation and options that are available to them. We know that this is really important because, especially for survivors, that gives them somebody that doesn't have to report like a police officer or like somebody at their child's school, that can really sit and hear their experience. So if 1 in 4 women is a survivor of domestic violence, there are quite a lot of women in your community that can probably benefit from Haven services. Directing them to our crisis line, and the number will be available at the end of my presentation, is the best place for us to start. Next slide, please. In addition to our crisis line, we also offer free confidential counseling. Now, at this time at Haven, all of our therapists are licensed in the state of Michigan to practice, and they are all specifically and highly trained in the dynamics of intimate partner violence, sexual assault, and the healing process. And so we don't bill insurance. And so for folks that maybe can't afford or don't want that bill to come to their house that says that they're receiving counseling, perhaps they're still living with their abusive partner, we offer them an opportunity to come in and speak with one of our professionals free of charge and without any disclosure on our end, unless, of course, we did reach that mandated reporting threshold. And so this is a really important service that we offer, and where a lot of survivors tend to find support and healing. We offer both individual and support groups. We see children from the ages of 5 and up, so we can offer play therapy, art therapy, and then, of course, we do have our support groups. And what is really interesting about the pandemic is that gave us an opportunity to think about how we can more proactively and innovatively provide services to survivors. And so now we are offering telehealth, which means that survivors don't even have to leave their home to receive that counseling. So if transportation is an issue or they can't get childcare, we can now meet survivors where they are in their home virtually to provide that counseling and therapy if that's safe for them. And then we are still offering in-person sessions. Next slide, please. Social Action, my team, little biased. I love them. I love the advocates, and I love getting to work alongside them every day. So our first response court advocates are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Does court run 24 hours, 7 days a week? Thankfully, no, but our first response program does. And so what my first responders are doing is they're receiving calls from crisis lines, and then they are reaching out to hospitals, to police officers, or to victims themselves to offer forensic exams. And I don't want to get too far into that because that will come up in my next slide. But part of my advocate's job is to do those first response forensic exams or rape kits, as you may be familiar with, and we'll get into more of that. They also provide court advocacy. And so Lindsay goes into court, well, when we could go in court. Now we are watching via Zoom and YouTube with everybody else. But we do reach out to those survivors ahead of time to ask them, you know, what is going on with their situation? Do they have any questions about what they might be able to expect at a pretrial? Do they have any questions about how to reach their prosecutor, for example? My advocates are not attorneys. We don't give legal advice, but we can certainly help them navigate that process because we do build relationships with the city attorneys and also with the Oakland County Prosecutor's Office and police stations to make sure that we are collaborating with them so that survivors can receive better outcomes in court because it's a very nuanced process and it can be really scary, especially when you're going to testify against somebody who has harmed you. That can be really psychologically terrorizing for people. And so we want a safety plan with them, and we want to also provide them with the emotional support that they need to get through the process with as least harm to them as possible. Next slide. Thank you. So this is what I've been hinting at, our START, or Safe Therapeutic Assault Response Team. So that is our first response advocates and forensic nurses. So we have nurses that are very skilled, highly trained, and also certified to conduct forensic exams, or what might be more widely known as rape kits. And so those nurses and that advocate, we are meeting with survivors usually immediately upon their discharge from the hospital or when they leave the police station to go through an exam process with them. And so this exam is twofold, well, really three. We are, one, meeting with the survivor and assessing their lethality. We want to see how dangerous is the situation that this person has found them in, and how can we strategize around them and provide them with safety planning and perhaps shelter. And then we are also doing an interview portion the nurse is conducting that's part of the criminal investigation process, where she is recording what the survivor is accounting by that assault that they experienced. Maybe it's a sexual assault. So she's sitting there, she's taking all that down. And then of course they have the physical exam portion, where that nurse is, one, making sure medically that they're okay and they don't need further intervention, but then they are also collecting any evidence that may be left on that person from the assault. So we do sexual assault exams up to 120 hours or 5 days. And then we have also expanded in the last 5 years to do strangulation exams for intimate partners who have experienced strangulation. And we can do that up to 30 days. We do have a camera that goes under the surface of the skin where we can pick up any bruising that may not be apparent to the eye to help those police officers with that investigation. Because if you don't know much about strangulation, the quickest way I can tell you is somebody has to be close to death for there to be marks that are apparent on their neck. A lot of times it's going to pop over a series of days or perhaps weeks. And then some of those may never come to the surface. So it's ever important for them to meet with our nurses so that we can capture that evidence as quickly as possible. Next exam, we also do pediatric exams. So we see from 0 all the way up to end of life. Our resources and community partnerships program. So we have a resource room. In our resource room, it is so much more than a room. They are connecting people with housing needs. We just opened a transitional housing leg of our resource room. And so we do have transitional housing now for our survivors. So that means that we are hooking them up with a place to live on a more permanent basis than our shelter. We're helping them budget. We're helping them become more self-sufficient and helping them to thrive outside of our shelter. In addition to that, we can also help them hook up with benefits. We have a mobile dentist that comes to our parking lot on almost a monthly basis. We have other doctors that rotate in. And so really our resource room is a one-stop shop. If they need help with an eviction process, something like that, our resource room would be able to assist them with that. Next slide, please. And then we have prevention education. This is the one piece of Haven that is not free because it's not considered direct service. Our prevention educators are skilled educators that are trained to go to audiences of all ages to talk about intimate partner violence, mutual respect, healthy relationships. We're in professional settings talking about warning signs that your colleague may be experiencing domestic violence. We're also training 911 dispatch. We're training police academies to really educate the community, our systems partners, and those around us about intimate partner violence and sexual assault, because we know that this is a community safety issue. And the more people that are educated on the dynamics and the warning signs and what to do if somebody that you know is experiencing domestic violence, the sooner we can get to actually eradicating that issue and holding the offenders accountable. Next slide. Our residential program, the one that most people know us for, our shelter. So our shelter is the only shelter that is specifically earmarked for survivors of intimate partner violence and sexual assault. It runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and hasn't closed a single day in the pandemic. None of our services have. They've remained consistent throughout the entire pandemic, and we're very grateful for that. In our residential program, people are generally staying for about a month to 45 days because it's an emergency-based shelter. They're there for a short time, not a long time. And so we really want to hook them up with as many resources as possible, help them with their resume, help them try to find a job, help them get clothes for work and things for their apartment when they move out. They get a case manager. And so that's an immediate need-based shelter. And we can house about 45 to 60, depending on how many kiddos we have with us at the time. Sometimes I'll share with you, there's more kids than there are adults, and that's a wild time for everybody. So we don't put any families with other families. We want that family unit to be able to heal together. We feel that that's really important. They've experienced a lot. They don't need to be absorbing another family's trauma. And so we do keep them separate in their own rooms. Our shelter, I'll be honest with you, kind of looks like a hotel. They have their own bathrooms, but we will put, let's say a single person comes in, and we do take both men and women in our shelter and people of other identities, perhaps non-binary folks and the trans community. And so we'll take everybody into our shelter, but we will never put a woman and a man in the same room. We do kind of segregate in that way to ensure that people feel psychologically safe. But we could put, let's say, a single woman and a single woman together in the same room. And that can create a really nice support system for them as well, so that they don't feel so isolated and alone when they come into our shelter. Our shelter is often full. I can tell you from the crisis line, there were days where I was giving 40 no's a day. Nope, we don't have any space. I'm sorry. Can I give you other numbers? So that speaks to the lack of resources and the need for housing in Oakland County. That's not a unique to Haven problem. That's a problem all across the United States, especially with the pandemic. The numbers of domestic violence have risen significantly, and it is a pandemic in its own right at this point. Next slide, please. And then, of course, nothing would be possible without volunteers and interns. We do have over 50 staff, but we are happy to welcome interns, especially into my program. If you know anybody going into criminal justice or anybody that might want to dabble in law later on in life, send them my way. I'll give them a good internship. They interact with survivors. They don't push paper. I treat them exactly like I do my staff. They get the same amount of training, the same amount of technical assistance. And then, of course, we do have interns in our counseling program, in our crisis line, in our residential. If somebody is interested in an internship, we do have a coordinator that's over all of that. And then volunteering, you can come once for something like gift giveaway, which is a free event that we give items for the holidays for all of our clients completely for free, so that they can have a Christmas or a Hanukkah with their family. If that's something that interests you, definitely reach out to me. I can get you to the right person. Like I was saying, all programs are free. Access through our crisis and support line, that's 248-334-1274. That's our local line. That toll free, same number, just a different start. But that'll get you to the same place. And then we do also have a chat program too. TTY is a little bit out at this point with the deaf community, but we do have a chat program that you can access through our website. Next slide, please. And then if you want more of me, you can get a hold of me. That is my work cell phone number, 248-464-8899. That is my email, M as in Melissa Sinclair @haven-oakland.org. And if you think that somebody in your community needs specific court advocacy or help, and if you want to learn more about the high risk response team, you can reach out to Lindsay Garasha. That's her work cell phone and her email there. Of course, for high risk response teams, you can also address any questions to me. I'm happy to answer any questions here today. Really grateful for the time, and special shout out to Bridget, my good friend. She has been so instrumental in getting Haven more prevalent in your community, and of course for starting the high risk response team. So just wanted to give a quick shout out and a hello to her. Really, really appreciate you folks here for any questions if there's time. I know I'm long-winded. So that's me, and that's Haven.
Well, thank you, Melissa. You know, we've been supporters in the community of Haven for quite some time, but I don't think that everybody in the community really understood the full breadth and depth of the programs that Haven offers. So your presentation today, I think, went a long way to, as you mentioned, it's not just a shelter. There's so much more and so many more resources for folks in our community to have access to. So thank you for being with us. Are there any potential questions or comments for Melissa? Councilmember Price?
Yes, thank you so much, Melissa, for being here. And thank you for raising awareness about that second pandemic, the fact that COVID has increased domestic violence so much within our society and our community. And thank you for the work that you and others at Haven do to help our residents get and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Appreciate that.
Councilmember Baker?
Oh, thank you, Your Honor. And I'd like to echo the gratitude for your time tonight and for the service that you provided to our community and for the region for so long, for so well. You answered my one question about the seen and felt impacts of the COVID pandemic on the kind of services that you provide. It's so unfortunate that, well, I hate to say it, it's unfortunate that you guys need to exist. But I'm really glad that you're there and for what you do. So I'll pivot and just ask one question for you, I think, and one for the my colleagues in city administration. The website, you mentioned that there's a website. We may have been able to glean it from your email address, but if you wouldn't mind repeating the website address. And then my question to city is how can we make these slides available for folks so that they if they don't happen to catch this presentation, that they can find this information and either use it for their own recovery and benefit, or to share with a friend, as they say. So the website address, and can post the slides.
Thank you so much. Yes, the website would be helpful. It is www.haven, which is HAVEN Oakland.org. And I will put it in the chat for you. Here, as a fun fact, HAVEN is an acronym. It's Help Against Violent Encounters Now. So we are always capitalized, just for a little fun fact for you all.
As Councilmember Baker mentioned, to the administration, making sure that we can get this, and I see Tori certainly already nodding her head. I think we will not have any issues making sure that we can get those slides published so that we can get this information out to as many folks as possible. Mayor Pro Tem Dean?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. I just want to say, Lindsay and Melissa are they're two dynamos. And I connected with them basically due to the high risk response team. And I continue to learn so much from both of them. They're very passionate about what they do. Their knowledge base is incredible. So Melissa and Lindsay, who isn't here, but this is for her as well, I just am so appreciative of your energy, your commitment, and your hard work, your patience. I'm just going to throw that in there too. But it's been so enjoyable. And to Councilmember Baker's point, it's unfortunate that we need something like this, but how grateful we all are to have this serving our communities. So thanks for taking the time tonight as well to educate all of us and remind us. And that START program that you mentioned, I wasn't aware of that until the high risk response team. And I just want to point out again that that is a free service that Haven provides. And the upside to that too is not only is the nurse who does the exams, she is specifically trained in forensic exams, but you can receive service there and it's free, no insurance, no money, nothing changes hands. So there isn't going to be an EOB coming in the mail to the house. It is truly a safe place. And I just wanted to mention that as well, because there should be, I would love to have no barriers to service, but if anyone thought that they couldn't because of a cost, or they didn't want an EOB to come to the house, rest assured that there is no cost and one will not. So thank you again, Melissa, for all of that great information.
Thank you for having me. I really do appreciate it. I too wish that Haven didn't have to exist. So I share that with you, but I really, really appreciate your time and attention. I know survivors do too. The more that we believe survivors and the more that we say, it's not your fault, there's help out there for you, the more that healing becomes possible. So I really, really appreciate you all, your time. Please contact me. I love to chat. If you want to know more about Haven, more about high-risk response teams, or more about how you can get involved, you know where to reach me. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, Melissa, and your passion and enthusiasm certainly comes through when you're describing the programs and just the impact that you have on folks and survivors. So thank you so much.
Thank you for.
All right. We now, Ms. Mitchell, will move on to item number 3, please.
Motion number M1521, matter of awarding the catch basin cleaning machine rental to the lowest qualified bidder, Jack Doheny Company of Northville, Michigan, in an amount not to exceed $20,000 in accordance with the Mitten BidNet public bid documents.
Is there a motion to approve M1521?
Motion to approve.
Support.
Motion to approve by Councilmember Blanchard with support from Councilmember Gavin. Mr. Baumgarten.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an annual item that DPW undertakes in order to make sure our system runs as efficiently as possible. We budget for it each year, and as you see, we've gone through Mitten to get the best price possible. Your packet includes the responses to that bid, as well as a memo from the Director of Public Works, Derek Schuler, who joins us this evening.
Mr. Schuler, welcome.
Good evening, and thank you, Mr. Baumgarten, Mayor and City Council. As Matt alluded to, this is a regular maintenance item. It's actually catch basin cleaning occurs once every 2 years. So we don't do it every year, but we program it to occur once every 2 years. So every 2 years, we go out to bid to rent a catch basin cleaning machine. And essentially, we have a machine like this in our equipment list, but we like to keep that on the mainline sewer work. So we can keep the main lines cleaned and televised, and this will allow us to clean the catch basin. So in a catch basin, in the bottom of the catch basin, there are what we call a sump, which is an area where material and debris can collect. It stores it there until we clean it, instead of it going into the line. So that's just a little bit of background. The catch basins have what we call sumps that need to be regularly cleaned. That way that any debris that comes into the catch basin can settle into that area. So we went out to bid, and I'm happy to receive 2 bids. I know the last time we did this, we only received 1 bid, but we did receive 2 bids for that rental, and actually they were both the same price from 2 different vendors. And so we have chosen the vendor that actually has the same machine that we currently operate, which is a Vector unit. So that makes a lot of sense. It gives us an opportunity to train staff that may not be used to working on that machine. They can go and clean catch basins, get a little bit of on-the-job training. So that's a wonderful thing. So we recommend award to Jack Doheny Company at a cost not to exceed $20,000, and that's a $10,000 per month to rent that machine. So we are intending to rent this for 2 months, I'm happy to report that in this case, it's actually a little bit cheaper than the last time around. We had some mild savings with the bid. So that's a nice thing to report back to council. I think that about covers it. I'm happy to answer any questions or any comments on this item.
Questions for our Director of Public Works, Councilmember Baker.
Well, thank you, Your Honor, and thank you, Derek, for your continued diligence with this. It is an important item. Not only do many houses in the city, homes that have sumps, but our streets do too, which is pretty cool. Do we know approximately what 2 months we're shooting for with this in terms of running the program, and will they be contiguous or spread apart?
Yes, so we're intending on getting going pretty much immediately, Councilman. So we will be, with your approval, sending authorization over tomorrow, and then we will take delivery of that machine within a week's time frame, and then we will get going right away. So there will not be much delay. We will be getting the machine shortly and putting it out in the field ASAP.
Cool. And I'm sure we choose to do it every 2 years because that's about the right time frame that makes sense. Do we have any feel for about how full the sumps are by the time 2 years is up? Are they half full? Are they overflowing? Any kind of indication as to how sumpy those things are?
It really depends. The condition of the road is a big factor, Councilman, as well. So, you know, those roads in poor condition are probably going to have a little more cleaning to do. So it really does vary, but the 2 year, as you mentioned, we found that to be the sweet spot for this. Certainly there's communities that do this a lot less often, but 2 years is about as long as we like to go. So we're very comfortable with that positioning.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you again.
Councilmember Blanchard.
Thank you, Just a quick comment. I think this vendor is doing a real good job for us because he offered us 3 machines and 2 of them are brand new and one's 2019. So we've got a good vendor here. It looks like we got some really good product to choose from.
We really do. We'll be renting one of the 2020 machines, so we'll be getting one of the newer ones as well. But yes, we're very happy to see newer machines on the rental.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Schuler? Well, thank you for explaining a little bit more about catch basins to everybody and the sumps and how those work, as Councilmember Baker alluded to. I think most people are familiar with a sump in their house and the pump that eventually goes in there. But it is important to realize why we do these things. And the 2 year cycle, as we've talked about before, seems to, it certainly makes sense for us and it has proven us well. And we will continue to do so. Seeing no additional questions or comments, Ms. Mitchell, would you please call the roll on M1521?
Gavin,
Yes.
Hennon,
Yes.
Price,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Blanchard,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Turbrack.
Yes. Ms. Mitchell, would you please read item number 4 on tonight's agenda?
Motion number M1621, matter of awarding the contract for the 2021 sidewalk replacement program to the lowest qualified bidder, Luigi Ferdinandi and Son Cement Company, via change order number 1 in an amount of $392,189. In addition, allocate $78,930.17 for construction engineering services to Hubble, Roth, and Clark, and $39,218.90 for construction contingencies.
Is there a motion to approve M1621?
So moved.
Support.
Motion made by Councilmember Hennon with support from Councilmember Baker. Mr. Baumgarten?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We continue the investment in our sidewalks. This is year 2 of our sidewalk replacement program. Again, we're targeting the most immediate concerns with the sidewalks, the larger lifts, those as detailed in the Director of Public Works' memo included in your packet. Again, we budget for this. We're excited to execute it. We're working on the financial portions of wrapping up year 1, so it's appropriate we start to move into the construction of year 2 here. As noted in the memo and in your packet, there's a map of the sections that we'll be covering this year. We were able to expand from 1 section to 2 sections this year, so a little bit ahead of the schedule that we discussed even last year. So we're very happy about that. Again, your packet includes a memo, bid documents, as well as a letter from HRC. Both Director of Public Works as well as Roland Alex from HRC is with you this evening as well.
Well, before we turn it over to Mr. Alex, Mr. Schuler, want to tell us a little bit more?
Sure, and thank you, Mr. Baumgarten. So we are continuing with the sidewalk replacement program, year number 2. Last year, we were in the southwest corner of the city, addressing those immediate repairs. And now we're going to move into 2 additional sections. So section 2 and section 4 are where we're going to be going next. And just so everybody, the map is very helpful in this respect, but section 2 is bordered by Woodward, 12 Mile, Coolidge, and Catalpa. And then section 4 is bordered by 12 Mile, Greenfield, Catalpa, and Coolidge. So that gives you a little bit of sense of where we're going to be going next. I also want to let everyone know that we're going to revisit section 5 in the southwest corner. And the reason we're doing that is because the initial survey, sidewalk survey that was done for that section was actually completed a few years ago. So even though the work was done over the fall, we wanted to make sure that we've got everything covered in that section as well, because certainly changes can occur during a couple of time year periods. So we're essentially going to be working in 3 sections thereabouts in the city of Berkeley. So what we're planning to do is have the same contractor that worked on the project last year also do the 2021 work. They are honoring their low bid unit pricing, and so we don't see any price increases there. And they were very efficient working last fall. They've done many projects in several communities here locally as well. So they come with a good reputation and they're willing to hold their pricing. So this just makes sense to handle an award to them with their pricing via a change order and move forward with the 2021 portion. As a reminder to everyone, sidewalk responsibility is the responsibility of each property owner. So all of us as property owners are responsible for the sidewalk in front of our homes. So this program essentially fronts the money to do that work, and then each property owner will pay the city back in some respect for that work. So it is a traditional assessment program. I think that's the big stuff. Let me talk a little bit about the schedule. So with council approval, we'll be sending out letters to impacted residents and homeowners and property owners within the next couple of weeks. Those letters will go out. And we, per the code of ordinance, we have to give the residents and property owners about 60 days to either find a contractor on their own or agree to opt into the city program. So that's part of our schedule, and that's why you see the dates in the schedule like you do. So we'll be starting construction sometime in late May, and then we'll finish up in late summer. I don't know the exact finish date. And keep in mind that we'll be covering a lot of ground with this program. So it's not to say that we'll be starting in every section in May. We'll have to work with the contractor to figure out exactly where they'll be starting, but safe to say construction will commence in May and take shape over a few months for everybody involved. And again, impacted property owners will receive notification in the mail with many details about the program, including the schedule and pricing and who to contact if you have any questions. So those are the big items. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Mr. Schuler or Mr. Alex? Councilmember Blanchard.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just for the education of the people that may be watching, would you explain why we have both 4-inch and 6-inch sidewalks so that everybody knows we're getting billed different prices?
Yes, no problem. So the sidewalk at your drive approach is thicker than the sidewalk at the other sidewalk, and that's because of the vehicle traffic. So you have 6-inch sidewalk where the vehicles travel over on your drive approach, Councilman. So that's the difference between the 2 items.
Thank you. One other thing that I noticed, I don't understand, is I noticed that it costs more to replace a slab with tree roots than those without tree roots. Or it says with tree roots, $7, and without tree roots, I guess it is $10. Why is there a difference there in the bid?
I can help answer that, Derek, if you guys can hear me.
Yep.
Yeah.
There is a difference, and actually Eddie and I were reviewing the letter that we had written, and we did make a clerical error. So the text is reversed. So it actually costs more money to repair a sidewalk with tree roots than it does without tree roots. And that's because the contractor has to deal with cutting of, and I apologize, my daughter's in the background, cutting of the tree roots and the additional work that is done to dig down and build that base where the tree roots would be impacting the sub base.
That makes a lot more sense to me. I was kind of confused by that.
Yep.
Thanks, Roland.
Thank
Of
you, Roland.
course.
That's all.
Additional questions, Mayor Pro Tem Dean?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. I think this is probably for Mr. Alex. If you could just clarify two terms. One, define field coordination and supplemental observation, please.
All right. So I assume those are listed in our scope of services. Is that correct?
Yes, I just want to be sure that I
Sure.
understand,
No, understand.
what those actually are.
Yeah. So supplemental observation, the way that this job was created is that there's a pay item that the contractor has to fill in, and that item is called observation crew days. So as part of their contract, they are bidding for a number of days that HRC will have to be on site to provide observation. And then those number of days that we're required to be on site with our primary observer, those are actually subtracted from their cost. So when they bid 10 days at $750 a day, what you pay them is actually their lump sum or their total bid cost minus the cost of those crew days. And then HRC gets paid for that style of observation. With a job of this size, when there are multiple crews working in multiple sections, we provide a line item that the city would pay us directly for supplemental observation. So that's when you've got one crew compacting base and another crew pouring concrete. It requires two different inspectors at those two locations. So if that's the difference between supplemental observation and construction crew days. And then, does that make sense? Maybe we handle one at a time.
It does. I just wasn't sure, supplemental implied to me that it was over and above. And because it was a line item, I just wasn't sure if that's,
Sure.
And then field coordination, how does that differ? Or what does that entail, please?
So field coordination is, so that kind of covers a lot of our administration and the just the complexities of having somebody on site. You might have to call in to our graduate engineer to talk about, hey, we've got a problem here, and that graduate engineer has to do some work coordinating with our observer. So it's kind of the office part of construction observation. So it's the time that some of our office staff required to complete.
With things happening in the field?
Yeah, so like answering questions that an observer might have. So an observer's a young college student, maybe he's unsure about a certain condition. He calls the design engineer to discuss that condition, and then the design engineer would charge the city for that time.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Councilmember Hennan?
Yeah, this first question might be directed to the city manager. How will we be invoicing? What sort of payment options do residents have?
As of now, we're gonna model the year 2 off of the year 1 option. So those that are participating in this will have the option of either paying it out of pocket immediately, or I'm sorry, initially having the option of repairing this themselves. If they opt to participate in the city's program, they'll also have another option to pay prior to rolling over to special assessment. But if they do allow for it to roll over to special assessment, we'll give them multiple years to pay that off. So essentially, it's a very, very low interest loan on the construction cost of this, with the city fronting, with the city putting forth all of the engineering costs. So it truly is it's a cost sharing program And it's advantageous to the homeowner because it can be very difficult to get a contractor at a reasonable rate to do what is typically a pretty small job.
And that leads directly into my second question. Did we have many people take advantage of doing the work themselves last year, or did we just find that they found the city bulk pricing turned out better for them?
I don't know the reasoning why, but we did have a pretty low number opt to do it themselves. The vast majority utilize the city's offer.
Yes, Councilman, very few homeowners ended up doing it themselves. The vast majority did partake in the program. I don't have those exact numbers. I don't know, Roland, if you have those handy or not, but there were not many folks that were doing it themselves.
Roland, you're on mute if you are speaking.
Sorry. Eddie and I had discussed this, and we could remember 3 to 5, either that the observer came across in the field, or we were contacted during the lead up to construction. So very few. And just for frame of reference, phase 1 was approximately 230 homes, and phase 2 is about 660 homes.
Okay.
Or residences.
Thank you, Roland. That helps.
Yeah, and then if someone did want to do it themselves, grinding isn't really going to be an option because of how much of a lift we have that would just compromise the slabs too much. Is that correct?
That is correct. So both grinding and horizontal saw cutting are options to eliminate trip hazards. The problem is when we're dealing with the high hazards, this 2 inches and higher, that sidewalk is only 4 inches thick or thereabouts. You're removing half of the slab. It's just not something that's going to last. That's just not a good solution in most cases.
Right. But then mud jacking might be something that could be utilized to level slabs out if a homeowner wanted to go that direction.
That's exactly correct. And I strongly recommend if a resident's interested in mud jacking to have the contractor come out, actually look at the conditions, because they'll be able to tell you if mud jacking can solve it. Because sometimes lifting a slab can create other issues such as trapping water. So best to have a contractor look at it in the field and then make that decision.
Okay, thank you very much.
Well, we went through, as we mentioned, the first phase seemed to be relatively successful. Is there anything that we learned as we were going through phase 1 that we are going to implement or change as it relates to phase 2, aside from doubling the area? Tripling, actually?
Tripling, yep.
Yeah, for me, Mayor, it was, we did have some restoration concerns in phase 1. Now, a big part of that is the time of the year that we did the work, which was fall. So obviously, we'll be revisiting those areas where we did have to put some soil down and some seed down to make sure that we can try to recreate the area like it was before. But I think for me, Mayor, it's going to be really restoration and making sure that we do a good job restoring areas that were disturbed. The nice thing about this contractor is they really do limit the amount of area that they disturb. And that's a real benefit on a lot of levels. Obviously, if you're making a mess and bringing in a lot of heavy equipment, you're going to be back restoring those areas. They do a pretty good job of keeping that footprint very tight.
Excellent. Councilmember Blanchard?
One quick question I forgot about. Do we have a quality control program for those residents that do their own to make sure that what they're putting in meets our specifications?
So Councilman, they would have to pull a permit for that. So we are involved in that process. So that would be our quality control in those cases. They would pull a permit and then we would be involved in making sure that they provide a quality product.
Okay, so they use that existing system through the permit process, and that's good. Okay, thank you.
All right, any additional questions as we move to phase 2 here for Mr. Schuler or Mr. Alex? Does not appear to be. Well, thank you both for being with us and for answering those questions and in the process of answering those questions, hopefully the residents got a better understanding, especially for those who maybe were not in phase one or in phase two, what's going to be coming in the near future. Seeing no additional questions or comments, Ms. Mitchell, would you please call the roll on M1621?
Henan,
Yes.
Price,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Blanchard,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Gavin,
Yes.
Turbrack.
Yes. We now
Thank you.
move on to item number 5, please. Thank you.
Motion number M1721, matter of authorizing the city of Berkeley to approve a grant of easement number 5928753-592875540 to DTE Energy to perform work at Merchants Park located at 2100 Bacon, Berkeley, Michigan 48072.
Is there a motion to approve M1721?
Motion to approve.
Support.
Motion approved by Mayor Pro Tem Dean with support from Councilmember Price. Councilmember Baker?
Oh, yes, thank you, Your Honor. Just as a note, public note here, I am an employee of DTE. And so I wanted to just preface by saying, you know, if the council feels there'll be any form of a conflict, I would certainly be happy to recuse myself from this vote. This does seem to be a normal step in a project such as this, but I want to be err on the side of caution and at least remind folks of my profession, and I'll abide by the council's wishes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Baker. Do council members have an issue with Councilmember Baker participating in this vote, knowing his role with DTE?
I don't think he'll be digging, so I don't think he'll have any problems, so.
Yeah, you don't want
No,
me anywhere near a shovel with this, no.
I think the only thing that you really brought to light, Councilmember Baker, is the next time that there is any small outage or blips, we all know that you will be getting the phone calls. Okay, we can now proceed. Mr. Baumgarten.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a continuation of the updates that this council and the community have been receiving on our Merchants Park progress. We're excited about this park. One of the procedural steps required here is that in order to have DTE connect power to the building that we have, which will be our pump house and our restrooms, we need to grant them an easement that would allow them access for maintenance and upkeep over the years. This is their standard easement granting document. We actually received this from DTE. It's been reviewed by the city attorney, and we recommend approval this evening so that we can continue to make progress on this park. Teresa McCarlton is here. She has been spearheading this entire project. She told me not to praise her too verbosely, but she's done some fantastic work here and has waded through quite a few layers of required document submissions in order to get us to this point.
Ms. McCarlton, thank you for being with us. What else, or can you provide any additional context on this?
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have much to add on top of the city manager. This is a pretty standard agreement. As the city manager said, our city attorney did review this and approved it, saying that it was a standard agreement. This is just a next step in this process. One of the last steps actually for the connection to be made. A lot of the underground utilities and the work has been done. I know that some of the concern that people had is, does this affect anything in terms of the baseball fields or in the ground? And it doesn't. Those utilities have already been done underground, and they do it in a really beautiful way, so it doesn't disturb the field. And we're just excited to get this step done, move forward and continue so that the park is ready this spring and summer for the community.
Well, thank you for that. As you mentioned, the city manager mentioned, this is a standard type easement. Mr. Attorney, I assume there was nothing here that stuck out to you?
No, nothing at all. I did not have any changes or objections to the document. It was pretty much their boilerplate template easement form.
Any questions for Mr. Carlton or our attorney? Councilmember Blanchard?
Just a comment for him, in reviewing this, it looks like this easement is 20 foot deep by 123 feet long. But the measurement on one end shows 20 feet and the measurement on the other end shows 15 feet. So there's some kind of an error in the drawing on the north end up by Oxford. But I don't think that affects us at all, because it's 15 feet to the bunker, and then it's 20 feet to the edge of the easement on one end, and it's 15 feet to the edge of the easement on the other end. So I think there's an error in this drawing, but if we're planning on a 20 foot by 123 feet, I think we're still good and should work out okay.
We'll review that, and I'll take a look. I'll speak with our contractor and DTE, Councilmember Blanchard, to make sure that we get that sorted out.
Any additional questions or comments on the agreement? Councilmember Baker?
Oh, thank you, Your Honor. And this isn't material to the item, just more of an interesting side point here, right? We're not quite into Berkley History Month coming up in May yet, but it is interesting. This is one of the few documents that we see where, as a grantor, we're noted as Village of Berkley, now known as City of Berkley. That's what the NKA means. It just goes to, to show that Berkley has had a operational relationship with the DTE dating back to before it was a city. And it's just neat to see that kind of stuff every once in a while, because there are not too many of them out there. But I guess I'm really happy to be associated with two longstanding institutions. So it's terrific.
To your point, the city manager and I had to find the deed to this property, and we both were like, how is this going to happen? And actually, someone at the county was able to find this old piece of paper, and they scanned it over, and it actually worked. We thought it might fall apart, and the city clerk also was able to find it. So thank you to Gina and Victoria for that. So yeah, it was just, it was pretty cool finding those documents.
I will tell you that in my years as mayor, or even as mayor pro tem, I've never had to sign anything that said Village of Berkley. Granted, it says NK City of Berkley, but it does go to show that this is certainly a long-standing relationship, and this is an important step in making sure that the park continues to move forward. Certainly, we need to they need to have access to get into where they need to get into, and we need to make sure that we can continue moving forward with our park and opening in just a couple of short months here. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, Ms. Mitchell, would you please call the roll on M1721?
Price,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Blanchard,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Gavin,
Yes.
Hennon,
Yes.
Turbrack.
Yes. We now move on to item number 6 on tonight's agenda.
Resolution number R921, matter of authorizing a resolution of the Council of the City of Berkley, Michigan, declaring a local state of emergency, COVID-19.
Is there a motion to approve R921?
Motion to approve.
Support.
Motion to approve by Councilmember Baker with support from Councilmember Blanchard. Mr. Baumgarten.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This comes before the council almost a year to the day of the mayor declaring a local emergency in the city of Berkley in response to the then escalating cases of COVID-19 in the state of Michigan and in Oakland County. The original declaration was then affirmed by council on March 30th. There was no sunset day included in that document, but thought it would be appropriate to update and reaffirm the fact that a local state of emergency does still exist, especially considering our need to continue to meet virtually as part of our COVID response plan. It keeps staff safe, it keeps council safe, and it keeps those wishing to appeal to their local government for various reasons safe as well. So we bring this before you and ask your consideration in updating it. And primarily in order to keep us in the safest capacity possible. You'll notice this particular the resolution does include a sunset of the end, which would be at the end of June. We sincerely hope to be able to end the state of emergency prior to that. But we felt as though it was a good precedent to continue to look 3 months in advance, as we have done with many other of our responses that we are in the rules and changes that we've had to make in response to the pandemic here. So again, there's promising trends coming out locally as well as across the country. But we do still feel that locally our need for meeting virtually exists, and our need to continue our emergency response still exists. So asking council to take that into consideration as you look at the resolution before you this evening.
Mr. Baumgarten, could you just go a little bit further and just highlight some of the, you just mentioned one, some of the, in the declared section that powers that it allows council to continue to operate under, so the residents are aware?
Certainly. Council would in the section 1 is further resolved and declared that City Council authorizes emergency services coordinator, city manager, mayor to take appropriate measures in their discretion to respond to or protect city residents, businesses, and personnel from the declared local state of emergency by adopting and enforcing all appropriate measures that include but not limited to taking actions necessary to comply with federal, state, and county orders and directives that are binding on the city, limiting, canceling, and postponing city meetings and functions to those required by law, canceling, postponing, or establishing emergency rules for the public meeting of the city council, board, commissions, committees, and providing public notice and conducting city council, board, commission, and committee meetings electronically with remote attendance in accordance with the Open Meetings Act as amended and the electronic meeting rules previously adopted by council.
Thank you. I think that's important for the residents who may not have this in front of them to hear some of those things. This would allow us to continue meeting virtually, as was alluded to at the beginning of the meeting, should the state or the emergency state level rules no longer apply past March. So this would allow us to continue, not only us, but also our boards and commissions to continue meeting in a remote capacity as well. Questions for the city manager or city attorney? Councilmember Baker.
Thank you, Your Honor. First, again, thank you to you and to staff and to the entire city for all that we've done together to get us to this point, right? As was mentioned, there's a lot of promising signs of potential, other side of all of this here coming to us, which is great. But again, we're certainly not out of the woods. There's a lot of stuff coming at us still, so I'm glad that this is here. I do wonder, and it probably doesn't warrant an amendment to this per se, but maybe as a clerical correction, the fourth whereas on the first of 2 pages was accurate as of a week or two ago when this was first drafted. The first whereas in the second part of that talks about the unavailability of COVID vaccine for most of the public. In the spirit of good things happening, that has turned a corner, and as mentioned at the onset here, everybody age 18 and up will be eligible to receive the vaccination as of in early April. So perhaps this could be rephrased in a way of either that not everybody has taken it yet, or the fact that there's the vaccine hesitancy. Some other way to capture the spirit of that. Since it's before us here tonight, I'm glad that this availability thing is turned the corner here, but there's still a long way to go. So just kind of wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Mr. Attorney, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think that is a substantive change that would change the spirit of our resolution, but we could maybe clean up the availability of vaccine as future use continues to open up.
Yes, I agree.
Okay. Everybody else okay with that? Not changing substantive, but the wording? Okay. Additional questions on the resolution, or comments, I should say, on the resolution? Councilmember Gavin.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thanks for bringing this in front of us. I do think, and maybe this is something that council can just, give a quick thumbs up or thumbs down on, but in light of what we were hearing earlier from Senator McMorrow's office and the correspondence we've had on the Senate bill, it might be of value just to email or quickly forward this resolution, if passed, to maybe the Senate Majority Leader, the Speaker of the House, the minority leaders in both chambers, just reiterating that this is still of value for a lot of local governments. And so, just a nice reminder that, might be a good idea to move this Senate bill.
Councilmember Hennan.
Yes, and I even add on to that while we're fortunate and we're able to declare a local emergency, some localities cannot, and I would hate to be in their situation, having to make these decisions at this point. Wanted to bring up a second point. I am looking forward to when we can meet again. I think there is a lot to say for meeting together face to face. I do think there's been a lot of advantage with members of the public being able to call in remotely. So, if we can at some point in the future, we might not be able to immediately, may not even be allowed under OMA, but if we can continue to somehow facilitate people who wish to make comments calling in remotely, that'd be something I would be interested in investigating.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Blanchard, and then hold on. Mr. Stern, I'll let you respond to that first before we move on.
Well, yes, very quickly. I don't think there is any legal impediment to doing something along the lines that Councilman Hennan suggested, and that would be when we do get back to in-person meetings, to still have some type of virtual or hybrid format for the convenience of the members of the public. I think it's more of a technology issue than it is a legal issue. So, if there's a will to do it and there's a budget to do it, I think it can be done.
Not only is there a will and a budget, but we have some fantastic professionals that are already planning in that direction.
Excellent. Thank you. Councilmember Blanchard.
Just a quick comment, Your Honor. I think this is very important, and one of the reasons is, if you notice, all of the COVID-19 case logs are starting to trend up again. So our 7-day moving average is moving up. Beaumont's average of patients is moving up. So we're in an upward trend again, not very steep yet, but it could get real steep real fast. So we'd have to be very careful, and we don't want to get out of this and cause a bigger problem. So thank you for that.
Right. I do think that we are at a critical point in our battle against COVID and doing the things that we need to do to keep ourselves and also our residents and members of our community, visitors to our community, safe at a time when there seems to certainly be positive news on the horizon, but it's still going to take some time before we actually get to a point where I think we are back in person. I think everybody would like to get back in person. It seems strange to even think about that. Like, you could actually sit next to somebody and maybe even shake a hand or something in the future. But we're not quite there yet, I think is what the spirit of this is trying to convey, not only to ourselves, but also to our residents. And we need to continue to be vigilant as we move forward and hope that sometime in the summer we find ourselves in a spot where we are able to do things again like that. Any additional questions or comments on R921? All right, seeing none, Ms. Mitchell, would you please call the roll on R921?
Baker,
Yes.
Blanchard,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Gavin,
Yes.
Hennan,
Yes.
Price,
Yes.
Turbrack.
Yes. Ms. Mitchell, would you please read item number 7 on tonight's agenda?
Motion number M1821, matter of approving Berkeley Days 2021 event beginning Wednesday, May 19th, 2021 and ending on Sunday, May 23rd, 2021, located at the Berkeley Community Center, 2400 Ravenna. Approval is conditional upon the submission of required items and documents prior to event dates. The council reserves the right to rescind the permit due to health and pandemic protocols.
Is there a motion to approve M1821?
Motion to approve.
Support.
Motion approved by Mrs. Dean with support from Councilmember Price. Mr. Baumgarten?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Annual event that comes before us each year in May. Denise Downen joins us from the Berkeley Days Committee this evening. Their committee has worked diligently to try to navigate the situation that we find ourselves in after responding as best as they could to state and local protocols. Denise has given us quite a bit of information here, as reflected in your packet, not only on the committee's plans, but also as well as the carnival company that they work with, their plans on trying to navigate the pandemic and local emergency that we find ourselves in now. So I know that many council members have had the opportunity to speak with her. Denise has also been working with city staff as well. And so we, again, bring this forward to council for your consideration. I know it won't be a difficult decision this evening as this event is in May, especially given the conversation we had on the previous agenda item.
Well, thank you, Mr. Baumgarten, and Denise, thank you for being with us this evening. We'll start with you. Give us a rundown of what Berkeley Days potentially could look like in 2021.
Well, first thing I would like to note is we did make a change to the dates. So that should read May 13th through the 16th. As far as Berkeley Days 2021 goes, we've put a lot of thought and effort into this, and we want to scale it back dramatically. So the only things that would be present would be the midway, the beer area. The only tent that would be there would be a tent canopy that would cover the bar, if you will, and the band. All seating for patrons is 12 feet outside of the staging area for the bands. And tables, we're looking at getting 6-foot tables so that all of our patrons can be spaced 6 feet apart at these tables. Allowing 10-foot spacing in between each table, which is 4 feet more than what the order requires, because we just want to take some extra precaution and safety measures. We had the thought of inviting some of our restaurants this year to be food vendors, maybe 3 of them to 5 of them, depending on what spacing would allow for. Because we will not be having the Taste of Berkeley this year. We wanted an opportunity to be able to give back to our local businesses and kind of help them out, because we know they've struggled greatly through this pandemic. The only other event that would be going on, if this is approved, would be the city baseball game. And otherwise, it's going to be pretty mild. I do take that back. We do have a petting zoo / pony ride available as well. But otherwise, none of the other events are going to be taking place. I spoke with Megan last night about the race, and she says if we do anything, it would be a virtual race where people can do their race and then come up to the Berkeley Days tent, show that they completed their race, and then we would give them a prize for that. So that's pretty much what we're looking at right now. Are there any specific questions or things that I didn't cover that you're curious about at this time?
Well, I appreciate you being with us, not only tonight, but also obviously the work that you've put in the committee to trying to find a way to hold the event despite the challenges, certainly with COVID, and especially based on the agenda item just prior to this, as we continued a local declaration, emergency, and speaking personally, I think everybody, I guess I'm not speaking personally, I'm speaking for everybody. I think everybody would love to be able to have Berkeley Days. But the reality is it would look very different, as you mentioned, if moving forward in some capacity is possible. Before getting into specific questions, I think just getting a sense of where council members are, because there potentially could be a number of items to look at. But I think the first thing is to just get a sense of where we are on a council as it relates to holding an event. I do know that May is maybe a little bit sooner than many of us would have wanted. And unfortunately, there isn't an opportunity to push Berkeley Days back based on the vendors and the midway and when that wouldn't be available later. So just some general feedback on council first before we get into the details here.
Okay.
Councilmember Hennan?
Yeah, so it's just really hard for us to know what the progress of COVID is going to be in May. As Councilmember Blanchard mentioned, the numbers are going up right now. And if you would have asked me that a couple of weeks ago, I would not be expecting that at all. So I know I've asked a lot of questions before this meeting, but what we have today is just lacking the necessary details to know if it's even going to be possible to hold this event safely. I know we could continue to work with Berkeley Days, staff could continue to work to try and develop the plans, but it's not really the job of our taxpayer-funded staff to do the legwork, no matter how popular the event is. So, I'm going to have to vote based on what's before me now, and that vote, unfortunately, is going to have to be no.
And I think that some of the challenges you mentioned certainly are challenges that nobody knows the answers to. Vaccine, how is it going to be out? How are people going to react? And when are the numbers going to be in a space where it seems a little bit more feasible for something like this? Additional feedback from council members. Mayor Pro Tem Dean?
Thank you, Your Honor. For me, it is a matter of conscience. We've had over 500,000 people die. To Council Member Hennan and Blanchard's points, the numbers are going up. I miss Berkeley Days as much as the next person. I appreciate the hard work on the committee and your dedication. I know you want very much to have this, and I think that, we didn't have it last year. I was looking forward to being able to attend this year again, but unfortunately, I just couldn't support it given the snapshot of how things are right now. My hope is that next year, I look forward to Berkeley Days coming back bigger and better than ever. There's just too many unknowns right now. So I'm regrettably, it disappoints me that I can't support this. And I know that it's a disappointment to you and the committee, but that's just where I'm coming in on this at this moment in time. Thank you.
Councilmember Baker?
Oh, thank you, Your Honor. I want to also echo my colleagues' appreciation and gratitude for the work that this committee has done. Denise, this is good stuff. I think you guys have really thought through a lot of things here. I know there was a little bit of a question as to what type of an event this would be. There was one that had a 1,000-person capacity and a different category that had a 300-person capacity. And I wondered, and I thought a lot about this, and I spoke with quite a few people about it. And I think I'll land kind of where Mayor Pro Tem did, in that I don't know that it matters to me at the moment because of the principle, right? A little piece of my heart broke when we were unable to find a way to do the Holiday Lights Parade, and another piece of the heart here is just getting chipped off for this event. We all love this, and we love this committee and the work that you guys are doing. And I'm wondering if, as one of the crux of Berkeley Days is to celebrate Berkeley becoming a city and the paving of Coolidge. and things like that. I'm wondering if we could find a way to celebrate a half birthday later in the year. To the mayor's point, certainly the midway and those things are contractual and difficult to just change the date. But maybe there's a way to do like a half birthday celebration of some kind. You know, my sister was born 6 months differently than me in the calendar year, so we have a half birthday celebrations when the other one has a birthday. So that's where the half birthday came from. But I don't know. But anyway, I'm also uncomfortable moving forward at this time. But it's not without a deep appreciation for the work you've done. This seems very well thought out. It appears that the Midway and the vendors that you've chosen are very professional and represent themselves well. They provided us with some great information on their approach. But whether it's 1,000 people or 300 people, I think it's more to the principle at this point. And so sadly, I'll also be unable to support this tonight. You know, if this was half birthday thing in the fall, we could see what we could do. Thank you again.
Thank you, council member. Any additional thoughts from council members? Councilmember Blanchard.
I just like to say I've been working closely with Denise and Bob Skirbeck, the show, and the chief. And one of the big things we discussed a lot on was the 300 or the 1,000. And as you saw by the chief's letter, he says it's 300. I don't think that with 300 that the carnival can make any money or would want to come. And I also don't think that we would be able to control it very well. That's how do you enforce having only 300 people? You have to put a fence around it and put gates up, put people at the gates. And then if you got gates, you got to have fire exits, and it goes on and on. So I'm very concerned about it. I have already started the event plan just in case it was approved tonight. I've got a draft of about the first half of that done. But I am, because of tonight's data that I looked at where this curve is turning up, I'm getting very concerned myself. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Blanchard. Any other thoughts, council members? Councilmember Gavin?
Yeah, I would just want to echo a lot of what my colleagues are saying as well. I'm not going to rehash, what everyone has really said, other than just to say thank you, Denise. To you and the whole committee. I know it's a lot of work has been put in. It's really, it's frustrating. It's upsetting. It's just, it's a really tough time. And I do think that the uncertainty really does prevent me from being able to support it. But I just want to thank you personally. I want to thank the whole committee for all the work that you've done, and I know continue to do. Hopefully Councilmember Baker's right. We can do a half birthday kind of thing.
Well, I would probably use some different language if we were not on a Zoom meeting right now to maybe more accurately express my frustration and sadness and disappointment at, once again, the prospect of not being able to celebrate Berkeley Days. Those of you that know me know that I joke around, but I got a little bit of a competitive spirit as well. And a softball game is one of those days where I get my old tired body back out and try to compete and have fun. And it not being able to do those events that just bring everybody together every year. When we have all the folks and all of the other events, the Taste of Berkeley, and just, the ride for the kids, certainly the kids, those of us that have kids, or even just come up here and just see the joy on the kids' faces at Berkeley Days is incredibly unfortunate. And I know that if times were certainly different, there would be no issue, and we'd be making jokes about who's going to win when we lose the softball game and who gets to hold on to the trophy. Unfortunately, under these circumstances, that doesn't make sense. And if there was a way that we could do this, I certainly would be supportive. But the fact that this is coming in just a couple of short months, and we are still not sure what things are going to look like, what the numbers are going to look like. I mean, our just again, based on the last item, we need to keep people safe. And I think that's what our charge is right now, is to protect ourselves, protect our residents, and not potentially have an event where something could happen as it relates to COVID and the spread of COVID. I just can't personally support moving forward with Berkeley Days this year in this capacity at this current time. I can't. And I wanted to be able to support this today and see what happened in the future, which is partially why there is some language in there that says council has the ability to rescind. But the reality is I also don't want you, Denise, and your group to continue to work and everybody else to continue to try to put on an event that at the end of the day, I just don't see it getting able to get the approval for it. And that would be incredibly worse and frustrating for everybody to put in all that work only to have the rug, pulled out. And we only have a couple more meetings before Berkeley Days either. I can, in good conscience, approve this tonight, as disappointing as it is. And Denise, I know it probably rings hollow, but all the words that have been said and the appreciation to you and the committee for doing everything you could to try to put on the event this year is not just bluster. It's not just talk. It is honest. None of us want to do this. We don't want to do this, but unfortunately, at least speaking for me, I feel like I have to do this. Any additional comments, Councilmember Hennon?
Yeah, I just want to echo some of the earlier sentiments that I think if some event were planned for later in the year, late summer, autumn, that it's incredibly likely that that would be able to be approved and be completely safely held. So I would really encourage looking towards some sort of event like that later in the year, even if it isn't exactly the same Berkeley Days we always have. I would love to see if we could have something that would just be great for the entire community.
And I'll tell you what, Denise, just like when we had to make a similar vote on the Holiday Lights Parade and not being able to have that, still a commitment to do something. And we were able to do something. No, it wasn't the same, and not everybody got to come out, but there was something that at least was able to bring joy to our residents. I will do the same thing with you. If there's something that we can come up with a little bit later on to at least celebrate our community and start to bring that back again and try to get some sort of an event together, I will certainly do everything I can to help you guys and to be a supportive and to try to figure out if that is a reality. Councilmember Price?
Yes, just to piggyback on what the mayor and Councilmember Hennon just said, absolutely supporting something even just another month or two away from the date that we're talking about now. For me, a real sticking point is that all of the volunteers, all of the people attending have had the ability to get whatever doses of the vaccine they needed and to have the immunity from those doses before they're exposed to this. That's really important to me. And I think that will be a changing point of when we can start gathering again. And I would hate to get this far through the year, it's making cautious decisions safely as a community and then risk anybody's health because we weren't waiting for a safer turning point in our society. So just like everyone else, I hate to not be able to support it, but that's where I am this evening as well.
Well, Denise, I have a feeling that's probably not what you certainly wanted to hear this evening. Maybe not completely unexpected, but still, is there anything else you would like to, and you certainly do not have to, it's completely up to you. Anything else you'd want to add to the conversation?
Though I do understand where everybody is coming from, it is very disappointing. I was really hoping that with the government kind of opening things up and allowing for these opportunities to take place, that maybe we could be pave the way for the rest of the year. But obviously that isn't an option, and I respect your wishes and all your feedback. Unfortunately, there we wouldn't be able to do anything later in the year. We're already operating under funding. And we would have to have a midway that would bring in revenue in order for Berkeley Days to continue on. And these amusement companies do contract 3 years at a time with their cities. So there are no available dates later in the year. The company that we use and we have been using for over 10 years now, they're contracted all the way through October. So unfortunately, it looks like we'll have to just wait and cross our fingers and hope for a better year next year.
Well, thank you again, Denise, for being with us and for all of your work and the committee's work as well. And then on that unfortunate note, Ms. Mitchell, would you please call the roll on M1821?
Blanchard,
No.
Dean,
No.
Gavin,
No.
Hennon,
No.
Price,
No.
Baker,
No.
Turbrack.
No. Ms. Mitchell, would you please read item number 8?
Motion number M1921, matter of authorizing the city manager to enter into a 3-year professional services agreement with Systemp Corporation of Rochester Hills, Michigan to perform heating, ventilation, and air conditioning (HVAC) equipment, preventative maintenance services for the city of Berkeley municipal buildings, not to exceed $10,100 annually. This expenditure will be charged to account numbers 101-265-931-000, 101-310-931-000, 101-738-931-000, 614-105-933-000, and 101-441-931-000.
Is there a motion to approve M1921?
So moved.
Support.
Motion made by Councilmember Gavin with support from Councilmember Blanchard. Mr. Baumgarten?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've been using the same contractor for a couple of years now, but unfortunately, they recently closed their doors permanently, which put us in the situation where we had to find a new vendor to take their place and service each of the city buildings. So what we did was we went through our normal process here, although unexpected. We were prepared to quickly find another vendor, thankfully. Dan Hill, who authored the memo included in your packet, was able to quickly put together an RFP, consult with the directors that are housed in the various buildings that will need this service, and put together a what you have in your packet this evening. So thankfully, we received a couple of bids that were very aggressively priced. It's the value of going through a sealed bid. You'll see the memo very clearly details the process we went through. Gives quite a bit of information. Credit to Mr. Hill on providing context to how we got to this point. And ultimately, after going through this process, going through a review of vendors, have made the recommendation for Systemp this evening. So we hope to continue or begin a new relationship with this qualified vendor. Mr. Hill is available as well. As mentioned, he shepherded this process up to this point, so he can answer any of your most difficult questions you have.
Questions for, we'll just say Mr. Hill. How about that? Questions for Mr. Hill on the contract we have in front of us. Councilmember Blanchard.
Just a quick question, Your Honor. Dan, any idea why we had such a great spread in these bids from 58,000 to 9,000? It just doesn't make any sense.
I do have some indication as to why some of those numbers might be so inflated. In speaking to this vendor, as well as some other vendors I've spoken to that called and reached out for some questions, some of them quoted some of those filters probably a little high, especially ones near some of our inventory. When we sent out the list, our inventory doesn't necessarily have serial numbers on it, but they said that they were going to be conservative on their end, and so they would quote us higher on some of the filters that they needed. In regards to this one specifically being near the same price as the last one, when speaking to the references for this one, every reference that I had said that these guys did a real great job and have saved a lot of different organizations money, one of them being Livonia Public Schools. The reference I spoke to there spoke for a good 15 minutes about how they have given them quality service but cut cost every single time for them.
I think this vendor's prices are very reasonable and look excellent as compared to what the one with $58,000 had. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Additional questions for Mr. Hill?
If anybody was wondering, also answer that the rate of inflation was 10.5% over that period. So you can adjust your calculations there as well.
That's a very high inflation number. Mr. Hennon?
Yeah, my only concern was them charging about the same thing as the previous vendor and the previous vendor not making enough money to stay in business, but we'll take it.
So the previous vendor, actually, they were ready for retirement is why they closed down.
Oh, okay, excellent. Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions for Mr. Hill? Well, thank you, Dan, for the memo and for getting through this process and getting through those bids. Again, as was mentioned, there was a very wide disparity in the responses to the proposal and to the bid amounts. And the references, I think, is incredibly important, which is why we do it, why we check the references. And when you find somebody who has the references that Mr. Hill mentioned, it's definitely something that makes a lot of sense, and especially when the cost is in line with what we would like the cost to be, it really makes sense to give that an opportunity. Councilmember Blanchard?
Just one I forgot, Your Honor. When does this start, man? Is this immediate or?
So I believe the professional services agreement I have drafted up and I think Attorney Staron has signed off on already is April 1st. And would go until March 31st, 2024.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Well, seeing no additional questions, again, thank you, Mr. Hill, for getting this prepared for us this evening. Ms. Mitchell, would you please call the roll on M1921?
Dean?
Yes.
Gavin?
Yes.
Hennon?
Yes.
Price?
Yes.
Baker?
I saw a thumbs up that I had not heard.
Yeah, I don't know if the click worked here finally. Yes, please.
Blanchard?
Yes.
Turbeck?
Yes. We now move on to item number 9, please.
Motion number M 2021, matter of awarding the contract for the replacement of the historic fire hall roof to the lowest qualified bidder, Shana Roofing and Sheet Metal, 28299 Carrick Drive, Chesterfield, Michigan, 48047, in an amount not to exceed $29,885 from account 101-265-976-000.
Is there a motion to approve M 2021?
Motion to approve.
Support.
Motion to approve by Councilmember Baker with support from Councilmember Hennon. Mr. Baumgarten?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a budget item. We have been planning for quite a while to replace the shingle roof on the old historic fire hall. For context, that is the brick portion of the city hall that faces Coolidge. It's the original home to both the village government, which of course later became the city government, as well as the original fire station that was utilized for the city as well. So the building is nearing 100 years old at this point. It's had a couple of different roofs, and it's time to replace a new one now. You'll notice that we also, in our budget, we also have planned for some trim work, which would most likely happen after this point. It's an option for Sheena Roofing. but there's some additional trim work that needs to happen around this building as well. As you'll notice in the memo crafted by Mr. Hill, the process was pretty similar to the one that we went through previously. We went through a closed bid process. Mr. Hill checked vendors, references, and we've had some experience with Sheena Roofing. We think they can do a good job for us for this particular project. So we are happy to make this recommendation to council this evening.
Questions or comments from council? Councilmember Baker?
Oh, thank you, Your Honor. And I'd like to again thank Mr. Hill for his excellent work here. You're living up to that angelic glow behind you there. I think that's great in your camera shot. And also thanks to my colleague, Mr. Councilman Henneman, for his outreach as well about the roof color. As noted, this is not the first time that the roof has been replaced in its almost 100-year history. And we've been working with the committee to identify the specific color type. The vendor has already proposed a matching color in their document, which feels appropriate, but we want to make sure. And of course, as you guys know, with old roofs, they tend to fade over time. So we would hope to not go too hard to match the way it currently looks, but rather match the way we intended it to look, right? And so I think that's a key point there too. But the historical committee loves this idea. You may know that they currently use a portion of the second floor for storage. That has not had heat functioning there for quite some time, and so especially given the roof conditions, as you've seen in the assessment of the roof, it gets pretty much Fs across the board there. It's been kind of chilly going up there to get materials to swap out in the museum. So they look forward to not having to bundle up to go up and get new items for the museum. So very much in support of this tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Blanchard?
Thank you, Your Honor. Just a quick statement here. In their management report from the company, it said that the section 2, the flat roof section, performed general maintenance and repair on the upper flat roof section as necessary, but it didn't go into anything about the actual condition. Mr. Hill, Dan, do you have any ideas of what that flat section looks? I haven't been up there since about 1986 on that roof, so I don't remember. We used to go up there in fire training and water the grass with a hose off the roof, but that's a few years ago.
I'd say you were up there sooner than I was up at the very top of the roof, but in speaking to Bob from Shana Roofing, it's in pretty good condition. Just needs a couple more looks closer to it to make sure that it's in good condition. Most people don't actually know there's a flat roof up there. I didn't know until speaking to the contractors. But from what I'm told, it's got a couple more years, and we can evaluate once they go up, then they're taking those looks. And as we start to talk about the other flat roof of the building in years to come, we can look at replacing that one as well, probably.
Okay, as long as we're aware that it may cost a lot more if they had to go back up there again to do it, we want to make sure that we do it enough this time that it'll get us through a few more years. So.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
Councilman Blanchard, I don't think they went on the top of the roof, but they did go up into the attic space and look at that section from below to evaluate it as well.
We could have put them up there on a ladder truck real easy.
Additional questions or comments? I will say that they do have one exceptional reference, at least, listed here. Whenever I see the name of Derek Stuhler as a reference, that's something that certainly carries a lot of weight with me. So I'm very happy to see him on there as a reference. Yeah, thumbs up from Mr. Schuler. Had to turn his camera back on. He was hiding, but thank you for coming back, Derek. I appreciate that. You didn't have to do that. Any additional questions before we call the roll on M2021? All right, Ms. Mitchell?
Gavin,
Yes.
Hennon,
Yes.
Price,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Blanchard,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Turbrack.
Yes. It is now time for our second public comment section of the evening. Again, this is for items that were not covered on tonight's agenda. If your concern again needs to be addressed by a member of city staff or department of the city, please email the clerk's office at clerk@berkleymich.net or call the clerk's office at 248-658-3310. If you'd like to comment, please raise your hand and you will be recognized by either name or number. When you speak, again, please state your name and city of residence, and remember, you will be limited to 3 minutes. Ms. Mathis, it looks like we don't have too many other folks with us at this point right now, so we'll give everybody a minute just in case they're frantically trying to get back into the link. While we do have just a minute here, although it does appear that we are moving towards the end of our agenda, there is still another item on the agenda. We will get to that in just a couple of minutes, but that is going to be a closed session. So we will not be adjourning after our communications today. Ms. Mathis, it appears that there is nobody else. Am I correct? Okay.
You're
so we will
correct.
close that we'll close public comments and we will move forward to our communications. Ms. Mitchell, who was up first?
Councilmember Hennan.
Councilmember Hennan.
All right. First, with the tree board meeting earlier this month, they reviewed some of the recommendations for trees in Oxford Merchants Park, and they're zoning in on that, continuing to refine that. I'd also asked them to review the city's policy on tapping street trees to make syrup. We have at least one individual interested in doing that. And the board's recommendation is that while that can be fine for wild trees because they're often pretty healthy, with the stress that city trees are under, that tapping them can compromise their health even more than the stress they're already under. So going forward, the city is not going to be permitting that. But the tree board will meet next on April 12th. At the Zoning Board of Appeals, they denied the next request for the generator and a side yard, again, consistent with the new law that we passed that goes into effect at the end of the month. And they were also denied the requested lot split after a lot of very thoughtful deliberation. And they have 2 cases scheduled to hear at their April 12th meeting. Last week, I was able to attend the virtual National League of Cities conference. There were a lot of good sessions, but just one I wanted to highlight was the federal lead and copper rules. So they're coming. Even if we didn't have the unfunded mandated that we have from the state, we'd be getting one from the federal government anyway. So it is something we, of course, are going to have to address. Then finally, I've been preparing and maintaining a list of COVID vaccination resources, who's giving out vaccinations, where you can sign up, and then where you can go to for the most recent authoritative information. That's at my website, dennishennan.com/COVID. And there's been a lot of changes in just the past couple of days, so I need to make a few updates tonight. But again, that's dennishennan.com/COVID, where I'm just hoping that as many people as possible, as soon as you're eligible, try and get vaccinated so we can start getting life back to normal. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Gavin.
Thank you, Your Honor. Not much news since the last meeting we had, so just a couple of reminders. Planning Commission is going to meet at 7 o'clock on March 23rd. The Master Plan Steering Committee, the next Steering Committee meeting is actually tomorrow, the 16th at 7 p.m. And then there will also be the Master Plan virtual open house on the 25th at 7 p.m. And then lastly, the Environmental Advisory Committee will meet this Thursday, March 18th at 6:30. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Dean.
Thank you. Here's your Parks and Rec update. So the Spring Fling outdoor dance that's happening on March 30th, there are still some spots available. The rain date is the 31st. While this is a free event, registration is required so that Parks and Rec can adequately distance. There are 3 different time slots that you can choose from when you register, so keep that in mind. It takes place in the community center parking lot. And if you'd like to attend, you can register by calling Parks and Rec or by visiting www.berkley.maxgalaxy.net. Parks and Recreation is hiring 1 seasonal outdoor maintenance employee. You may find the job description and the application for this position on the city's website. Parks and Rec Department will have summer day camp information at the end of the month. Outdoor programs will begin in April. And please remember the Shamrock Hunt it starts tomorrow, the 16th. Officially, it's the 17th, but the Shamrocks will be out if you want to go look for them. So if you are planning to participate, when you find the Shamrocks, please leave them where you found them because it will allow others to find them. But you can take pictures of them, post them onto social media with the hashtag Berkley Shamrock Hunt so that then everyone can see the Shamrocks that you found. So happy St. Patrick's Day to everyone. I hope you enjoy the Shamrock Hunt and all things green. Thank you.
Thank you. I know I certainly can't wait to get on my social media and then post all those pictures of shamrocks on my very active Facebook page. Councilmember Baker.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just a couple quick updates as well. Downtown Development Authority met last week's Wednesday, the 10th, and their next meeting is April 14th. Like all the departments in the city, they are talking about budgets and priorities for the upcoming fiscal year and beyond. We had a good discussion about crosswalks on Coolidge, and there may be updates from others yet this evening on continued thoughts and progress with some of that stuff, which is cool. And wayfinding work is underway as well. Wayfinding will replace and add signs within our downtown and throughout the perimeter of the city as well, helping folks find all the cool and awesome things that we have in here to enjoy as a community. And as always, for more information about the DDA and their upcoming Ladies Night Out theme, Take Me Out to Berkley, visit downtownberkley.com. Historical, no meeting this month. Their next meeting is actually Tuesday, May 11th. And as mentioned, they're excited about the roof in the hopes of not needing gloves when they go upstairs and a hat. Kudos to the group for braving the weather up there. They found yet another tranche of historic photos and slides and things. So we'll be working to scan those in and add that to the archives and make those available for folks to see and enjoy. Technology Committee, they meet this off month for them as well. April 21st is their next meeting. And speaking of social media, yeah, the cyber tip of the month is when using social media, be skeptical, be cautious in what you share. Pictures of shamrocks, I think, are approved by our committee. But you know, as you read and review things, be conscious of the intent and motivations behind things that people post. And especially from a cybersecurity perspective, don't click links that seem suspicious or that ask you to provide personal information, because that usually never ends up working out well for you. It does for them. And finally, it was Jack London who said, life is not always a matter of holding good cards, but sometimes playing a poor hand well. And collectively, as we mentioned earlier on a couple of our items, we've been dealt a pretty bad hand coming into 2020. And I think, again, the community and this team and others have done a great work to try to understand which way's up and how to move forward. And as also mentioned, that the game's not over, right? It's not time to celebrate yet. And please continue to take care of yourselves As at the opening of the meeting, we had the update from the senator's office about the vaccination appointments that are now available through Meyer Clinic. I do hope that the city social media feeds and website will provide links, so you just have one place to go. But there's a website. The domain name's not too bad, but I won't bother to spell it all out for you. They have a way you could text to register for an appointment. You text this, end COVID to this number, and then get signed up that way. Or there's some phone numbers you can call. But the important thing is to get in line and get your appointment. Take care of yourselves, take care of your family and your neighbors and your friends, and your coworkers, so that hopefully we can come back together and do great things in person as we look to deal ourselves a better hand here as we go forward. So with that, I want to thank you again.
Thank you. Councilmember Price.
Yes, thank you. I want to thank our city leadership, department directors, and staff who are prioritizing safety as they carefully consider potential events and reopening doors to the public. I want to also thank them for all the innovative and exceptional service that they continue to deliver from a physical distance. Our library is a great example of that. It's currently offering curbside book browsing with photos of available books and related recommendations of additional available books. You can also fill out a request form online for a librarian to hand select a stack of books determined by you or your child's interests. And of course, curbside pickup and porch delivery continue. Find all the details on our city library's website or by giving them a call. Last week, I also had the privilege of attending the National League of Cities Congressional City Conference. I was able to connect with other city leaders from across the country and advocate for issues like municipal funding and infrastructure that affect all of our cities. I want to thank our congressional representatives who continue to sponsor and support bills that benefit our municipalities. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Blanchard.
Thank you, Your Honor. A couple of things tonight. Just remember that our restaurants and retail stores are still open during this pandemic, and they need your support. So try and eat local, dine local, and purchase just local as much as you can, because they definitely need our support. The American Legion fish fries continue. They'll be again this Friday. They're from 5 to 8, carry out only. And the call-in number is 248-591-9220, or you can just go up there and order and wait there. But it's carry out only. Now, after listening to Steve for many years with the quotes, I decided maybe I ought to look up a quote. So there's an emergency management quote. In an emergency, we rise or fall to the level of our training. Author unknown. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Blanchard. And if you are going to call that call-in line for the fish fry at the Legion, I suggest you call early and often, because sometimes it's tough to get in there. They're very busy. I know that firsthand. Mr. Baumgart.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for members of council for your continued support for staff. Tomorrow being a year since our emergency declaration also coincides with one of the last days that we were able to be open and serve the public directly. As I've said many times, you get into public service to interact with the public, and not being able to do that has been incredibly difficult, made easier only by the support that we continue to get from this council as well as the members of the community. I know that I have friends and peers that are not as lucky and have not had the support from their community on keeping staff safe and taking those appropriate steps. So once again, continue to be incredibly blessed to live and work and serve in Berkeley. And just, it's a fantastic community, and I hope it continues for many years. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Staring.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just very quickly, I am looking forward to on Wednesday morning attending, albeit virtually, the Michigan Association of Municipal Attorneys Advanced Legal Institute. I believe at least several members of who are on my screen here may also be participating to some degree in that conference. But among other things, I'm expecting to hear more about legislative updates, which may be of interest to municipal attorneys and municipalities, as well as the latest and greatest on civil rights complaints. So just trying to stay on top of things so I can best serve you folks and the community. That's all I have this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Sterin. I have a few things, as our work is not yet done this evening, but I too attended the National League of Cities virtual Congressional City Conference last week, and a couple of things that stood out to me. One is the respect that our community has across the state. Yes, this was a national event, but there were many sessions where there were my colleagues and peers from across the state, and I received many compliments regarding our community. Additionally, as the Congressional City Conference, we had the opportunity to speak with the offices of our congressional delegates, as Councilmember Price mentioned early on, Congressman Andy Levin, Senator Gary Peters, and Senator Debbie Stabenow, specifically regarding the American Rescue Plan, which aside from the direct help to citizens and businesses that has probably gotten the most notoriety, it also provides assistance to municipalities, especially smaller municipalities that were skipped over in the first rounds of support. In fact, Berkley is entitled to about $1.5 million from the American Rescue Plan, which is certainly a significant amount. We had the opportunity to discuss the challenges that we know we'll face, as well as acknowledging that there are things that we can't predict, and the full impact of COVID may not be realized for us until years into the future. The infrastructure concerns, certainly short-term and long-term, dominated a majority of the conversation with them. But I also want to thank those elected officials for their support of the American Rescue Plan. And at least, for our officials, we know that we have open, transparent lines of communication. And to wrap up the Berkeley Days conversation, it's incredibly unfortunate that we're not going to be able to move forward with Berkeley Days this year. It's sad and it's unfair, but safety will always come first. I'm very optimistic, or maybe hopeful is a better term, with the access to vaccines increasing, that we may be able to still have some of our incredible community events later on in the year, even if some are in a modified capacity. But I certainly look forward to being able to get out and celebrate again with our community, and we look forward to that. And certainly a very happy St. Patrick's Day to all. I cannot quite express that as my predecessor would have, but he has an advantage. I don't have the accent, and it just doesn't work if I try to do it anyway. But happy St. Patrick's Day, certainly, to former Mayor O'Dwyer and everybody else that will celebrate. And I know that everybody celebrates either way. With that, Ms. Mitchell, would you please read item number 10 on tonight's agenda?
Closed session, matter of considering whether to meet in closed session to consider the city manager's periodic performance evaluation.
Before I ask for that motion, there will be no action taking place after this closed session. So if you choose to call it an evening, feel free to do that. The only thing that will happen is we'll come back and adjourn after that. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
Motion to go into closed session.
Support.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Dean with support from Council Member Blanchard. Ms. Mitchell, would you please call the roll?
Price,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Blanchard,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Gavin,
Yes.
Hennon,
Yes.
Turbrack.
Yes. All right, we will convene to our secret meeting room. Tori, I'm sure you'll give us the go-ahead when we can do that.
Yep, I'm sending you guys there now.
All right, I will give everybody about a minute to 2 minutes if you need to make a quick run as we move into there before we get rolling. All right, are we all back? Everybody make it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, we are all here. Tori, are we good to go?
Probably should unmute myself. Yes, you're good to go.
Okay. All right, I will reconvene the regular meeting. Mr. Baumgarten, would you please call the roll?
You're muted.
You're muted. Yep.
A year in and making a rookie mistake. Councilmember Baker,
The evaluation's over. Relax.
Here in Berkeley.
Councilmember Blanchard,
Here in Berkeley.
Mayor Pro Tem Dean,
Here in Berkeley.
Councilmember Gavin,
Here, Berkeley.
Councilmember Hennon,
Here, Berkeley.
Councilmember Price,
Here in Berkeley.
and Mayor Turbright.
Here in Berkeley. With that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Support.
Motion made by Councilmember Gavin with support from Councilmember Baker. Mr. Baumgarten, would you please call the roll?
All right. Councilmember Price,
Yes.
Councilmember Hennon,
Yes.
Councilmember Gavin,
Yes.
Councilmember Blanchard,
Yes.
Councilmember Baker,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Dean,
Yes.
Mayor Turbright.
Yes, the March 15th, 2021 meeting of the 38th Council of the City of Berkeley is adjourned.
Thank you all.